We use a lot of mix of library material at first to kind of get together a character of the gun and kind of the general sound that we want it to have and portray. Once we feel that we have that down, we can go to a list of weapons to then go and record them live. And we'll be doing a lot more live recording with the weapons this time around.
Typically, most of the gun sounds are extracted from, if you do live records, from outdoor environments. We've been experimenting a little bit with using indoor sounds and mixing those with characteristics of outdoor sounds. Just a couple of different approaches just to give them a new flavor, trying to get out of that sort of box of this is how you create a weapon.
One of the components of a weapon, it's kind of a little sound design trick that someone taught me a long time ago, is the actual sound of the trigger being pulled, just that little dry click. And those little mechanical noises, and that tends to be what actually makes this gun sound gritty, not the blast. The blast of the weapon is pretty much just volume, like they almost all sound the same to a certain degree. So as a little psychological trick, we'll do things where we'll place some of that trigger noise maybe 100 to 150 milliseconds before the actual blast of the gun. And while you don't perceive this, or I should say you perceive it, you don't notice it, you hear that click every single time the gun fires off, and it implies mechanical movement, moving parts. And the bigger we make that mechanical noise, the larger the gun and chunkier the gun kind of feels like. And so you'll notice this time around that in some of the bandit-themed weapons, which are all kind of homemade, just kind of things glommed onto each other to make them, that they'll all have that characteristic, that kind of real rattly, big, bombastic type nature to them.
In BO1, it was a lot more desert area, so we kind of had to come up with different things to hook onto to create different themes. But with this, you go from snow to lush grassy areas to dams to whatever, and all of those feel different. So it's great for music support, which BL1 had music, ambient music as well as combat music, in this game will too. As far as the sound effects themselves, it really helps things come alive because you're not reliant upon wind and falling rocks all the time. So you can plants and trees and leaves and all these kinds of things can be mixed into the world to make it feel more alive.
And additionally, one of the other aspects here is that rather than just the environment alone, there's going to be a lot more character development and important pivotal characters involved throughout the game. And that's going to give us an opportunity that we weren't able to fully exploit on the first Borderlands, of recurring themes and these recurring melodies being associated with certain people, and getting that musical support to the story that's being written.
BO1 was great in the sense that it kind of established this sort of quirky, over-the-top character line. People really grabbed onto it, and it wasn't oversaturated to the point to where people were trying to get away from dialogue. So I think this time we can really focus in on developing a little more story and actually using some of the new characters as well as the old characters in creative ways, and telling some backstory and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of worked out to be a great approach.
And we've also been doing a lot of talking of actually having the characters have interaction between each other as well. So we'll take that to the next logical step of they used to comment on what happened in the game and throw that out into the world. Now, one of the other characters might say something back. So that opens up a whole lot of new opportunities.
Yeah, which is great because it helps connect the player much more to what's going on in the world, because they feel like there's actually dynamic things happening with the characters and with the dialogue. Use my hands a lot.
One of the interesting things that we're going to be able to do as well is we'll be able to prioritize what audio is coming through the mix, basically. And so if beforehand, every monster that was fighting you was always making its sound, so we had to try and anticipate which sounds would be more important than others in which situations, and so we'll try to just hit a baseline there to get, at least 70% of the time you're hearing what you need to hear. So what we'll be able to do now is that when there's an important monster roar or a huge attack that's about to happen, we can take all the other audio that's not important at that moment, bring it down, which makes that standout moment or attack even that much more impactful, and you'll feel like it's hitting even harder. So our goal is to make everything in Borderlands as aggressive as it was before, and to even hit just that much harder.
Yeah,
and
even
you know,
yeah,
take it a notch up.